It's funny. I think back probably when you and I first started having these conversations, we had set a stake in the ground saying that within 3 years we get to 50% of everything that we bought would be bought through automation, which scared the crap out of everybody on my team. And initially, actually, what we said was 2 years, not 3. And in order to buy everything through automation, you have to have sellers who are set up in order to sell through automation. So we went about looking for partners who are capable of doing that. And there were a lot of interesting candidates for that, from Amazon to a lot of the more traditional data and technology partners. But that also required getting, as I say, those sellers together, and we created a consortium to have representation from out-of-home to TV to digital, all forms of video, et cetera, in order to literally go about changing the industry. And it seemed to me crazy at the time that we didn't automate because everything around us had. If you think about how long ISKI codes have been around, how long Sabre has been, how you secure your airline tickets, et cetera. We were the only industry that just could not get there. I think in part because of how we get paid. Since we're paid based on man hours, it wasn't really in our best interest to decrease those man hours. But cut to where we are today, it seems almost laughable that one should have to convince anyone to move to an automated platform. And if you look at how prevalent AI is in our lives, technology is taking over what human beings used to waste an awful lot of time for. So I think that what's happening now is we've all raced to the same place, which we as an industry do. So everybody's all around data. Everybody's telling the same story around data and personalization and so on. So we've used technology to allow us now to get to the people that matter most. But what I hope is right around the corner, and I know certainly with Dentsu it is now that you've automated and now that you have all that data, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to tell a better story? And that was, again, what we said from the very beginning, was we weren't automating for the sake of automation. We were automating to take menial labor away from humans and reapply them on more strategic, creative ventures. So I think that's where we are as an industry. I think that when we all get over talking about data and nothing but data, we'll get to what are you going to do? How are you going to make a great story to the people that matter most now that you know who they are? I remember 100 years ago, just about 100 years ago, Becky Sager was the CMO at Visa. And all the way back then, she said, I have more data than I know what to do with. I just need to know what to do with it. As in, don't give me any more of it. Help me to create utility from it. So I think that's, again, what clients were saying then and are certainly saying today, which is, it's really great that you can tell me that it's Andy. But now that it's Andy, how are you going to ensure that I get the right message to him? And then when you know you've gotten the right message, how are you going to measure what happened when you did? So I think it's around efficiency, and it's around effectiveness, and it's around true ROI. And that's awesome to have gotten to. But personalization is around creating relationships with the people that matter most, and it isn't just about showing up. It's what do you do when you get there? And that's, again, where I think we as an industry are.
We hear a lot about targeting, addressable, one-to-one, the opportunities that creates, the changes in the marketplace, some costs involved with doing that, but also some increased ROI. What's the sort of opportunity and return on investment around a more addressable world, and what's the value of an addressable world versus a more traditional branding situation?
It kind of depends upon who the client is. So you probably don't need the same level of addressability for a chewing gum brand than you do for a luxury auto. So there are mass populations that have an awful lot in common, as in they chew gum. And there are cohort groups that have a lot in common, and you can address more efficiently or effectively either mass or cohort groups than you can an individual. But there are many instances in which if you knew exactly who you were talking to and you could measure what happened when you did, there would be great return on that investment. So we start with all clients of, I'm seeing a box right now. You can't see the box, you can just see my hand. But there's a one-to-one, one-to-some, and one-to-most, and you look at the equation of each of those three. How much money are you spending on that individual today versus people who look like that individual versus people? And then how do we need to change the dial? So should you be spending more on that individual who matters most and measure what he or she does? Or should you be balancing it out more with people who look like that individual or people who just seem to have things in common? So every client has a different equation of what that should be. If money weren't an object, I think each of us would talk to the individual, her or himself, because obviously conversation is more valuable if you know to whom you're speaking. But there's, as I say, a different set of measurements against those criteria based upon how important is it that you actually know who that human being is in order to have that relationship.
Tell us sort of the changes that are sort of happening in the media agency world and sort of opportunities and challenges.
I think that holding companies in general and media agency groups in specific have kind of gotten what they deserve. So if you consider what the model has been predicated upon, it is convincing clients to spend as much money as possible. And that's kept television alive as a much more robust medium for advertising than it probably had any reason to be. That's not in client best interest. Convincing clients to spend as much money as possible is good maybe for those that are reaping the commissions or keeping the numbers of people employed to spend all that money, but not so good for the client. And as is so often the case, Procter & Gamble leads all. And so Procter saying, we're going to cut our fees by $750 million, billion to billion for whatever, and the Unilevers and the rest traveling behind them going, yeah, we are too. You're an agency, you're going, oh, this is a big problem. We're screwed. Unless you're the right kind of agency, like Dentsu, who built the right way and recently, we're only 5 years old, and you start with, you know what, client, you should spend less money because you've been spending inefficiently. You shouldn't be spending against audiences that don't matter to you. There's a role for mass communications in terms of brand awareness and so on, but that's not where you should be spending the preponderance of your dollars, probably. And there are partnerships with media owners that you should be taking advantage of. You don't need to work with everybody. So I think that we are now going to get to a place, and I know that we are already there, of ensuring that the relationships are built between the people who can deliver best, not just everyone. And it will become less about that grossly inefficient spend against, I don't know, whomever. And it'll be more efficient and effective spend against the people who matter more. So that also gets to a thing that you know that I've been championing forever, which is pay for performance, which is I'd much rather sign up for a client who has a business objective that I can actually track the results of and ensure that they're delivering what they set out to do than to be a vendor delivering TRPs and GRPs.